Have we got all the moderators? We've got all the facilitators here. Should we try and start the session and then we can hear from the facilitators of what the feedback was? Right. Prasanta, sorry. Have they pulled, do you know if they've pulled everybody in yet? Yes. Thank you. Should we try and start the session to hear back from the different groups? We've already heard that some of the people felt the sessions were good and some people felt they were less good. I think the important thing is that this is the start of a process and not the end. The idea that you can resolve a roadmap for post-harvest food losses in an hour is obviously, not going to happen. It will take a week, it will take a month, it could take 6 months. However, the one thing to remember is that when we go to talk to government ministers, potential funders, we actually don't have even an hour to talk to them. We might have 5 minutes or 7 minutes. So to me, the purpose of the roadmap is to give us a consensus around a high-level opportunity to talk to the funding agencies, including governments, and try and get coordination. And if we can really get post-harvest food loss front and centre of the debate, I think if we can get coordination amongst funding agencies and some high-level thinking about how do we reach the goals, then we will have, over the next, I think, Prasanta, you're hoping that the total process, you're saying that it will take quite a few months to get this done, but we can start over the next half an hour or so. And the one other point, just to get in there, which has been fed back, and hopefully we can use this roadmap to do, is also how do we incentivize private business to get involved with post-harvest food loss? Because I know from my company, for example, that this is a great opportunity, along with the great need and the demand. It's also something we should be involved in. And again, so we need to show people what the value of private-public partnership is. But anyway, really, we need to hear from the facilitators. So the first one is harvesting.
In our group, Klein was our scribe, and he's going to present on the summary of his notes from harvesting.
So we, our target intervention area was harvesting. There was a lot of discussion in the group. And just to give you a context, we had people working in a variety of space, and we had to address various commodities which had very different challenges. So you look at the commodity, grain, fruits and veggies, all the way to the fishing industry. So that was one challenge we had to deal with to sift things out. But two things came up as major causes for losses at that stage. And the first one was the lack of locally available technology and the lack of know-how and education. So those were our two top priorities that came out. And the interventions to address those, we had, as you know, markets, technology, policy, and education. But the first two that came out In the order most important was education, so to address the lack of locally available technology, and then the next one was policy. With respect to, we didn't go into the lack of know-how and education in terms of prioritizing those. With respect to question number 2, which was for the most critical target intervention area, what are or could be the 3 to 5 best practices and promising approaches. We just addressed the best approaches or solutions, and I'll just list the numbers, the various things that came up. The first one was have early adopter stories out there. Extension was a big one, extension through the normal extension agency as well as farmer field schools, and even further going to extending those schools to be business schools, so getting farmers to not just being able to grow crops, but turning them into entrepreneurs. Then we had train the trainers demo, pilot best practices, private sector involvement, future farming, farmers training, cluster farming like things done in the Philippines. And I'll jump over to question number 4, and that is trying to, based on the answers to the above questions, by how much can post-harvest losses be reduced by 2050 to improve quality of lives and livelihoods of a large number of smallholder farmers. And again, remember we're addressing the harvesting section. Overall, across the crops, we thought that in 10 years by 2015, 25, we'll reduce that by 50%. In 20 years by 2035, reduce it cumulatively to 75%. And by 2015, reduce that by half again, so a cumulative reduction of 87% by 2015. And the last aspect which we had a lot of discussion and a lot of ideas was question number 5, which is list 7 key areas or messages that were not discussed or addressed in the Congress, but are needed to sustainably reduce post-harvest losses with minimal environmental impact. And I'll just quickly read that list. Delays to market was a big one. And genetic solutions to post-harvest losses, so things that were not discussed that we thought were important. Behavioral science and economics, nutritional value loss in post-harvest, infrastructure, energy, incentivizing the private industry, primary processing at the farm gate, pre-sorting at the farm gate, retail-friendly packaging, quality standards, harvesting aids, harvesting indices or index, public-private partnerships, farmers co-op, get actual farmers to the meeting, and finally, policy intervention. So we couldn't address every question we had adequately. Like we said, we had a very diverse thing to think about, but for those things I've presented, I thought we did a good job discussing them out. Thanks.
Great. So the plan is to go through all the 5 areas and then have a group discussion at the end. The one thing I'd ask, is there anything from the group who were looking at harvesting, is there anything else that they wanted to add or they felt was missed? No? Good. So the next one's drying and storage.
Okay, thank you. We had a very productive conversation, and I really want to thank Chelsea, a student from University of Illinois who did the electronic version, and Dr. Awal from Bangladesh Agriculture University that took the handwritten notes, have served as scribes, so thank you for their help and assistance. In our conversation, when we talked about 3 to 5 major causes of post-harvest losses, obviously there were a lot of additional items that were mentioned and shared. And kind of the key ones that came out in terms of the major causes of losses is the lack of access to moisture measurement devices and their reliability, calibrations, and so forth and so on. The lack of storage facilities in the sense of the number of facilities, the location of those facilities, the quality and the maintenance of those facilities, the operation of those facilities, and associated to that, which kind of went across the interventions of market, technology, policy, and education. Similarly, the lack of access to appropriate drying technology that had been adapted, where end users have been engaged in the development of that and the adoption and adaptation of the technology. Lack of information, education, training, knowledge, again through the entire chain from the end users to people that have knowledge that can be as trainers, extension educators that are involved. And that ties in with, and then another key one was access to finance. Access to finance, various ways that can be addressed, but and within that context, we talked about cost-benefit ratios and making sure that technologies are sustainable and are able to be financed by the operation and the value system, the value chain system itself. And then within that too were gender-specific aspects that were brought as well. So when we talked about which ones are the first and second most critical interventions, we had it identified broadly as technology, from the breadth of the description of technologies, from access to it, to appropriateness to it, to knowing how to operate them, and infrastructure in a very broad definition. They're also not just the physical infrastructure, but the regulatory policy infrastructure, the educational infrastructure, and everything else, the private-public partnerships, the establishments of markets in that broad component, from drying storage as a technology or a step in that chain. And so then we really only had time to dig into the technology component in terms of what are some of the best practices and most promising approaches. And then we talked about the metric, measurement, use of transparency of data, particularly within even the context of a quality management system, and how one might implement that across the entire value chain, what might be measured, how do people have access to the information, the quality of that information, and the ongoing iteration of that information as it gets improved and expanded over multiple harvest cycles. To have end users involved in the development, the supply chain of technology, manufacturers, the manufacturers entrepreneurial that provide equipment or services to support drying and storage technology, and then the overall sustainability of that. And I know in my summary I'm not doing enough justice to all the great discussion that was going on, but again, this is for the purpose of a summary. And then as we jump to number 4, we had really a wonderful discussion there as to whether our curve is actually the right curve. And in this type of a curve that we had in the handout, we're discussing the fact that we anticipate a fairly quick reduction of post-harvest loss as a result of lots of things happening, where the reality might be that it creates a lot more of this, activation energy, that it's going to take a little bit longer to get to a momentum build up, and then, we kind of get over the hump in that regard, and that might be a more realistic. We didn't decide whether one or the other is the right, but we had good discussions, both directions, that maybe a goal by 2020 might be 6%, and by 2025 might be 20%, and maybe by 2035 we hit 50% and kind of get over that. So I thought that was a very important contribution, and there was a lot of consensus among a large part of the group towards that, but also others that felt maybe this could be the way as originally designed, or it may also depend on the type of commodity that we're talking about, perishables versus durables and so forth and so on. So that's kind of was the summary from our group. And again, I really appreciate everybody's contributions in that regard. So,
Is there anything the group wants to add? Good. Transportation.
Okay, Group Yellow, I want to thank all the participants in that group. We are a very efficient group, although we had very good debates there. I also want to thank Dr. Ken Roche for being the scribe of this group. So we follow the rules, so we went through all the 5 questions. So there's causes and interventions. So we came up with 2 causes: infrastructure and materials handling are the 2 big causes of loss. And for infrastructure, we have 2 interventions. One is policy, and the second one is transportation means. For materials handling, we have also 2 interventions. One is to conduct research to come up with locally appropriate solutions. Another one is also a packaging materials technology. So I'm going to jump into implementations because it's a tree structure. It's very difficult to describe using only words without graphics. So some of the key points coming up with: the government should invest in upgrading the system, especially paying attention to rural areas, and also appropriately allocating budgets to facilitate the progress. Okay, and also public-private partnership is very important. We need better roads, we need win-win situations, we need technology development using public-private partnership. On the transportation means, I think packaging comes up all the time. Better packaging methods, and also refrigeration vehicles also serve as an important thing. Research on locally appropriate solutions, low-cost, sustainable solutions are very important. Also, we need to do a better research on how to aggregate, because that makes transportation more efficient. And also, we need to encourage investment in research, and that's maybe a whole bunch of researchers in the group. For example, how do we convince the government to operate more budget? We need to have a better implementation plan, like a roadmap, and that's very good. Economic, like the value propositions, you know, how your research can take to add values to the whole system. Interesting, in the packaging area, training comes up. You know, looks like we have a shortage of workers with proper skills to be able to handle different packaging methods, broadly defined. So, like, best practices would be a good training material. Also, live demonstration, you know, like a good demonstration sites would be good. For locally appropriate materials, to create an enabling environment to produce locally appropriate materials for packaging. So those are the first 3 questions. Regarding the 4th question, I still have 2 minutes. So we had a long active debate on how to set targets for 2020, 2025, 2035, 2050. We have 2 thoughts. One is just we do it ourselves within the group. Don't pay attention to what's the Malabo. There's already a government target, right? By 2025, we need to reduce by 50%. That's already a published target. So in the end, I think the government wins, you know, for some reason. So we say 10% reduction within 5 years. By 2020, 10% reduction of loss. Then by 2025, we jump to 50%. I don't know how you plot that curve, okay? And it's very interesting, then we slow down 2035, 60%. And by 2050, we like to see 100%, but we are more conservative. We settle at 75%, okay? So just take those numbers as you, using your imagination, how to accomplish that. So question number 5, additional messages, okay? The first one is to consider producers in addition to only farmers, okay? We keep talking about farmers, and there's a different group called producers, like fish, like some other people. They are not farmers, but they are producers of food, okay? So we need to add producers in, so we don't leave any group out. And the second topic is nothing new. It says, for question 4, we set targets, but without good understanding of what current losses are, it's very difficult. The target setting is meaningless if we cannot understand current losses. And also, in the future, how do we measure the losses so we can put on the chart? So that concludes my report. Thank you very much to Group Yellow, and thank you to you, everybody. I still have 13 seconds. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Is there anything the group wants to add? Good. Processing.
Yeah. Thank you. And I would like to personally thank everyone in my group. They are really, really passionate. It took me really a lot of effort for me to bring them to what we need to accomplish with the 5 questions. Anyway, like the top targeted intervention areas that we identified for question 1 is access to sustainable, profitable market, and then access to technology and credit, and pretty much like access is the keyword. The second priority-wise, the target intervention area is development of affordable, appropriate scale technologies. The third one is awareness. Everybody talked about education and information. And then the fourth one is, it's pretty, these people are really so good with words. Enforceable quality grading system. How do I reach that? I don't know. But for the first one, the targeted intervention measure that we identified as the access to successful, sustainable, profitable market, the ways and means of achieving those things, the best management practices include public-private partnership. Again, that has been mentioned over and over again with others. The second one is identification of, creditors who would really trust these farmers, processors, or producers in this case with their money so that they can actually invest in such technologies that could minimize the post-harvest losses. And then third thing that they said is like, regarding processing, if your raw material is not of good quality, what is the incentive for them to really go for processed and adding all these expenses to trying to comply with all these things? So they mentioned like the raw material quality is very important. And how do we achieve that is, again, going back to the transportation, the drying technology, these harvesting technologies, all the previous puzzles of the piece have to really work to get a quality product that comes to the processors so they can get a profitable reach for what they want to do. And then, again, talking about the question 3, which is the second one, that is appropriate scale technology, affordable and appropriate scale. We talked about quite a number of things there. Again, number 1 is transfer of technology. There are lots of technologies already available all over the world, but how do we transfer that to locally specific information? Second thing is to engage the government so that they can incentivize, they can provide subsidies to adopt these technologies. The third thing is encourage indigenous knowledge and innovations from local participation. And then this one was, I think, I'm not sure, nobody mentioned it, providing infrastructure to repair these machinery locally available, like local knowledge, local individuals who can fix these things. Because if you have a technology that's available but doesn't work, and the adaptation of those such technologies doesn't happen. The last but not the least is, one of the mentioned is business models needs to be developed for making these technologies adaptable. Instead of like each farmer having one tractor for themselves, maybe like a cooperative effort or maybe some business enterprise that needs to come in and provide these services to these farmers at an affordable cost. So again, business models needs to be developed to bring in this success for appropriate affordable technologies. One thing that everybody is talking so high numbers regarding the targeted 2050 reduction in post-harvest losses. For some reason, my group was so pessimistic, I would say. I'm not sure, like, or maybe more passionate. They go up 25% by 2050. Okay, anyway, that's their word. I'm just, reporting that here. List 5-7 key areas that was not discussed in this conference. They were pretty, again, passionate about mentioning GMO, or we did not talk about that. Okay. Second thing is, who controls the food distribution system? Again, that's very complicated. The third thing is, they said like, we need to focus more on bioprocess technologies that are coming in forefront, these new innovations that could be used to address these post-harvest losses. Example would be, byproduct utilization, like any of these wastes can be transferred using biology to value-added products, which we need to talk about. And the fourth one was talk about is like certification. We did not mention anything about certification or again, quality standards. So then I stop here. Again, once again, thank my group for a wonderful knowledge sharing and trying to bring in what we want to do with the roadmap.
And again, any questions from the group or anything to add? So we're on to the last one. I think we're still on time, so thank you for that. The last one is retail.
Thank you very much. From our side, Dr. Neil had volunteered to give us the distilled discussion of what the main points came out. Dr. Neil.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gulati. Our group discussed the losses associated with retail utilization of agricultural products. And first thing that we spent time talking about was what's the magnitude of the losses that occur at the retail level. And I think we're all aware that those are quite substantial, especially for perishable products. But based on the information that we've heard in the last couple of days here at this conference, and on the experience of the individuals that were meeting with our group, we came up with estimates on the order of 1 to 5% for cereal products, much higher than for perishable, on the order of 10 to 20% for, in developed countries, greater than that, 30 to 40% in developing countries. And this is focused primarily on pre-preparation for consumption of those products. So those are significant losses. What are the major causes of losses? First of those, or one of those that we mentioned anyway, is education and training of employees and consumers. And we talked about interventions that are necessary in that arena, occur both in marketing-related issues and in policy-related issues. For example, one of the things that we talked about was the issue of best used by dates, or used by such and such a date, and the conservatism that is often associated with those numbers from regulatory agencies. We talked about issues related to harvesting. We mentioned mechanical injury to fruits and vegetables, and selectivity of vendors and consumers of those products. Seasonal fluctuations in availability, and the necessity for marketing interventions in the form of adjustments in the supply chain and timing during the year. With respect to the issue of education and training, we talked about interventions from both marketing and policy standpoints. With respect to the other major cause of losses, we come back to issues of storage and packaging. In particular, the accessibility and availability of cold storage. And we identified that as the first most critical area for intervention. And in that regard, we talked about those issues, again, improved access and availability of cold storage and packaging as both areas that are primarily technologically driven and need to be conveyed to small retailers in particular. On the other front here of training and education, as well as policy-related issues, I think one of the things that we talked about at some length was the importance and the necessity of expressing these kinds of losses on an economic basis, as opposed to a percentage basis. That those types of expressions are much more influential when it comes time to talk with policymakers about the importance of making adjustments in in their policies related to research and marketing in those areas. When we get to the issue of question number 4, how much can post-harvest losses be reduced by 2050? I think our group was, there were individuals that were quite optimistic about what that number could be. There were others that were either more realistic or more conservative in where we thought we should be on that. So the number that I ended up writing down here is that by 2025, 10 years from now, the expectation is that we can reduce those losses to something on the order of 30% or slightly greater, depending on resource availability, to help enhance those losses, with continuing increases on the order of 40 to 45% by 2035 and 50 to 60% by 2050. Make what you will of those numbers. And Dr. Gulati, I don't know if you have any clarifications you want to add. I can.
Thank you. So I think the next stage is really to open it up to the audience. But the one thing just before that is we've seen some good figures of what the targets are, 50 to 60% by 2050, 75%, 87%, and 25%. Bringing that back to one of the numbers yesterday we kept on talking about is water. I suppose if I use my figure that we're currently wasting 3 times the size of Lake Geneva, is that if we hit some of those, we could save twice or even more the size of Lake Geneva. That's a big saving, and that's something I think we can really sort of show governments. It's not just the impact of direct livelihoods, it's also the impact on natural resources. But anyway, it's your chance now to feedback, hear what you want to say, and questions asked. Straight over there.
Thank you. I have one comment and question. In our post-harvest or in our chain, we've not included consumers or the end users. And for me in the retail group, I found that very difficult, and there's a big lack of where a lot of our losses are, especially.
Is there anything you want to add to that? Next up. Oh, right next to you, actually. Just might as well keep it moving around. It's quite hard to hear up here at times.
I made a point in our discussion that I think it's worth mentioning here is that the connection between all 5 of these. For example, ours was the retail discussion, but I mentioned the point that in retail, of course, we're going to continue to have lots of loss of perishables. If some of that glut in the market that comes, especially for fruits and vegetables, if those cannot be processed by simple processing technologies to create products that have longer shelf life, we can't expect to show big reductions, for example, at the retail level, if we don't have proper things in place at those earlier steps in the value chain. Transportation, for example, processing. So we have to remember that all of these are very much connected.
Thank you. I just have a question which is also a concern with regard to those targets that we are setting. We have the G20, we have the Malabo Declaration, we have so many highly political commitments that have been made with regard to setting targets. And now we are setting some new targets that will add up to the confusion. And I don't just understand what the mandate we have here to set up those targets and how effective those targets will be in terms of reaching out those goals. So this is just a concern that I have and a question that I want to put forward for debate. Thank you.
Do you want to take that now, or Prasanta, do you want to pick that up in your closing remarks? Where's Prasanth gone? I think it's something probably Prasanth will want to pick up in his closing remarks. Sorry, there you are. I thought you'd gone that way. You'll pick that up? Good. Yes.
This is Ali from Pakistan. We are in PHL for the last 40 years. All the researchers, presenters, speakers have given all theoretical things. No practical technological solution is with any person in all of the 4 days. We must go back with profit, not with losses. We people have developed technological solutions for horti, dairy, livestock, fishery, meat, and all other things. If you want technical, practical outputs, we can give you guarantee for 0 losses within the 3 years. First year, 50%. Second year, 70%. Third year, 100% zero wasted guarantee may be given by us. We are a private concern. If we were unable to save ourselves in the losses, we never survived for 40 years. We are grateful to Mr. Khanna and Robert who brought me here. If you need some practical, technical solution, we are here. If anyone of the conference and other speakers have some technical solution, they can give me, or we can give you, free of cost. You can save the world practically. But this is all theoretical awareness, which is very much important. But now there is a time to do something. Do or die and save the PHS. This is our mission. If you need, we offer our technological solution for any crop, any poultry product, any flora, any meat thing. We are fighters in the field, not in room. In the last 40 years, we have faced each losses on the spot. First year, we faced losses. Second year, we recovered 40, 50. Ultimately, we have gone to 100%. We have developed own fabrication lines. We were unable to import heavy cost machineries from Europe and America. So being user, we developed each and everything. We have changed professional processing lines. We have each and everything for you.
More comments, because it's good to get them all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh.
Hello?
Where's that one?
It's over here.
That's right, yep.
Yeah, Jethro Green, the Caribbean Farmers Network. For the last 2 days, lots of presentation, but I think this morning's summary was very focused, and I think a step in the right direction, and the report from the group. So I'll just want to make 3 quick comments. To make this whole thing different and to continue on what I call the practical thing that is potentially, that can come out of this, is to emphasize the public partnership situation, the public partnership relationship. The second thing I want to mention is to put and keep emphasis on sustained profitability. The last thing I want to talk about is I'm wondering if in your deliberation we can also think about more focal access point where organizations like us or farmers can access practical workable technology, affordable technology, by clicking into one area rather than going 1,000 places around the web. And maybe you could think about some ways of collaborating with the private sector and the government, your institute or whoever it is, to create, along with FAO, to create that kind of a focal point which would guide us and focus us in direction. Because sometimes the farmers are part of the private sector and we want answers, not a lot of running around on details. So I'm saying that so far I see this is going in the right direction, but we must keep the practicality and ensure it's not just a series of words, but the private sector partnership and something that you can show in dollars and cents that when you go to government, you say, you're going to make $5 million in savings if you do X, Y, Z, and if you make this investment.
Thank you. I think there was a question down here.
Thank you. Kind of following on to the last comment, I think we now have, you know, a clear outline of some of the areas that we kind of agree we need to focus on and some of the important interventions that could be made. I was thinking that really it'd be important to have a discussion about how do we drive this forward now? I mean, how do we help make this happen? Do we go to each country and sit with the government officials and the donors who are funding projects in that country and sit down and come up with an individual roadmap country by country? Or, you know, what do we do? What's the roadmap to strategize the plan going forward so that it's done in a coordinated way that makes it possible to meet the goals that we've set?
And I would suggest that that is a perfect question on which to ask Prasanth to actually come up to the stand and talk about the next steps of the roadmap. In so doing, I would just like to add, or just say that I think Prasanth and his team have organised an amazing event. So I would ask, as Prasanth comes up, that he does get the round of applause he deserves. Prasanth? It's an entrance. So, Prasanth, the question was, what happens next?
Okay.
So I think it's two things. I think it's a little bit around the summary of what you've heard, and also how you see this going forward, and how you're seeing it to be carried out to the countries and the governments, and turn from a great conference session, a great roadmap, into something which is going to deliver the change we want.
Thank you very much. You know, right now I like to invite our another big partner in the crime. Robert is gonna give few comments from FAO side what he would like to see, and then I'll conclude that on.
Thank you. So I made a small 2-slide presentation. There it is. Thank you very much, Prasanth, for giving me a chance to make some suggestions here. Before I really start, I just wanted to quickly address 2 small issues that struck me earlier this morning, namely that we are not talking only about crops, as was shown on one of the introductory slides this morning. Of course, we're talking about all kinds of food products, including fish, meat, milk, and crops is one of the other categories. Especially fish has received a lot of attention during this conference. So I don't use automatically the term crop, rather talk about food products in the broad sense of the way. Then with regard to the 5 stages in which the food supply chain has been divided here, instead of saying storage and drying, I would rather say primary processing and storage, because not all food products are going to be dried. And other processes like grading and sorting, cleaning, cooling are equally important and critical with regard to food losses as drying is. Okay, then now I'd like to come to, next slide please, I'd like to come to the, my suggestion, my request for an approach to go ahead. Of course, this morning we have in 5 groups listed all the potential problems that can occur in a food supply chain and where losses can occur and what could be the solutions for it. But if you do that in this generic way, more or less at a global scale, then indeed you will find that every step in the food supply chain there is a problem. But this is not the real situation, because if all of you go back to your country and you will look at specific food supply chains which are important for your country, then you will find that not everything is a problem. So you identify the dead spots and these happenings in the food supply chain which are causing food losses, and that's where you intervene. Because if you consider it in a generic way and you think everything is a problem, then you don't know where to start, and it seems quite hopeless. Therefore, in order to move forward, I would like to suggest, and I would be happy to receive your comments on that, I would like to suggest that the participants, all of you here, you go back to your country and to your institution and the subsectors where you are active in, and you commit yourself to engage in 4 main activities that should contribute to a reduction of food losses. First of all, we need at national level the implementation of the Food Loss and Waste Protocol as developed by the WRI and its partners. Because how can we talk about 50% food loss reduction if we don't even know the baseline of how many food losses do we have now, and we don't know really how to measure it in a reliable and accurate way. This is essential in order to measure our losses and to measure our success, the implementation of the Food Loss and Waste Protocol. Secondly, I would like you to initiate and to start research to the impact, causes and solutions for food loss, for post-harvest losses. And do this in a focused way. You select, for instance, the most important food supply chains or subsectors in your country where you're going to concentrate on. Because if you take it on too broad, too general, then you may not get the quality results and the specific outcomes that you need in order to determine the best solutions and points of intervention. Then after, and through this whole process, I would suggest that you communicate back with ADMI and with FVO. We will work together on this so that we can support you and guide you in this research and in the implementation of these actions. After the best solutions, the feasible solutions, which are economically feasible and socially acceptable and environmentally friendly, if they have been found, we need to implement these solutions. Again, at national level, at food supply chain level, they need to be implemented through projects and activities, including training and capacity building of the stakeholders who really have to carry out these improved systems. And finally, we need at national level awareness raising, advocacy and extending the partnerships in order to be able to upscale the solutions to a national level and to attract the resources that are needed for this case. So my suggestion is that each of you, you go back home after today, and in the coming weeks you make an action plan to implement, for instance, these 4 points that I'm stating now, and attach a budget to it. And that means I'm not saying in any way that we are going to finance it, but it is necessary that we have an indication of what is it going to cost. And then with this action plan, if you feed that back to ADMI and to us, ADMI and FVO, we will share that together. Then we will see how can we help you to realize this. What technical support do you need? What technical advice do you need? And maybe we can link you up, or definitely we can link you up with other partners in the Global Initiative on Food Loss and Waste Reduction, who are already maybe doing some of the things that you want to do in your country. So we link you up and see how they can help you, how you can help each other. Sharing problems, sharing solutions. That is the approach that we want to follow. So you should share it with the community of practice that you have been informed about yesterday, and with the ADMI Institute. And of course, I don't want to scare ADMI that by 3 weeks from now they will receive 200 action plans with requests for support. We will all share this with our partners. We have a long time ago realized that this whole problem is so complex and so huge that we as FAO, we cannot do it by ourselves alone, and therefore we immediately actively engage our partners who are already in our system, in our network, at any level, at NGO level, at international organization level, at private sector level. We engage them to help us to find solutions and support other partners in implementing their problems. Now, as a kind of concluding remark, in the spirit of partnership of the Global Initiative on Food Loss and Waste Reduction, I must say I'm extremely appreciative to the ADM Institute of Post-Harvest Losses that they, from the onset on, approached our program, the FAO program, the Safe Food Program on Global Food Loss and Waste Reduction, in order to organize and to contribute to this conference. Because that is the way to go about it. If any institution or organization, no matter how rich or how skilled, starts working on its own, you will not get very far. You have to do it together. And although I highly appreciate that many organizations, it's important to raise their own visibility in order to justify their actions and to get to resources, I can assure you that in FAO's initiative, we are not going to interfere at that level. We are just happy to receive requests for support and ideas for solutions so that we can share that at a wide forum with our partners so that the final goal of a global food loss reduction can be obtained. Well, I was not very well prepared for this speech, and actually I have just said all the things that I wanted to say. So on behalf of the FAO, and I would say thank you to all of you, and I really hope to hear back from you in the coming weeks on concrete plans you want to undertake in your countries. Thank you very much.
Robert, thank you so much for this, your comments from FAO side. And I know our other FAO colleagues, they actually are in a big meeting that starts at 12:30. So Divine and Tony, they're right. That's what I was talking to them when I was running back into the stage. So they had to leave. I know Robert, he has to leave too, but anyway. So Robert gave this action plan. Let me summarize what's next, what's after today. As you will be all, packing your suitcases and going home, this is what you will be thinking about. Came here, attended the conference, made some friends, and now we are on our way back. Where is the sustainability of our thought process? How are you going to sustain that? So here are a few things that at least I discussed with my colleagues, and we thought we want to give you an update on what we are going to do. We will synthesize all this information. There are wonderful points came out through these group leaders on this roadmap from various different groups. So we are going to synthesize on this information. And my program manager, she told me, Katie said that this session is being video recorded. So we are also getting all the comments. Thank you, our friend Dr. Ali from Pakistan. We will definitely consider, because if you have a lot of solutions, that gives us some good guideline. From an audience, there was a question about what's our mandate, where the G20 countries have their targets and all. Well, I cannot comment on their mandate and their targets, but what I can say, this group is the real professionals. This group actually know real world what is happening, post-harvest losses, not only in the talking in the very high level. So we have a different set of standards maybe, and this is not only my comment, I just borrowed this comment from my good friend from USDA sitting next to me, Eric, said that, he said, this is a group of professionals, these people deal with these things on a day-to-day life. So I think what we are collectively coming up with, and then what we'll have in our roadmap should carry a very distinctive value in reducing post-harvest losses. Do you agree with that? Thank you. So, So once we put this together, we are going to email you back. Each and every one of you, we have your attendance list and email, and we request your response back to this draft the roadmap that we are going to have. Please give a response, share with your colleagues, other people, because you are representing your community and your partners and your stakeholders. Give us your feedback. Our target goal is to have, I will never say a final, because you always make change. My terminology is near final roadmap. We would like to, if you all give your comments back, we would like to put it on our website by December 31st, 2015, so that we can say by the end of this year, we have it. So, this is not a huge document. This will be a 2-page, 1-page document. This is going to give all of us, everywhere, regardless of where you came from, an agenda, a guideline, so we can go. We said we need to educate our government. Go and share it. That here is the global agenda came from International Congress on Post-Harvest Loss. People can read it, sit down, and then what Robert suggests, follow that action plan. So you need to develop within yourself, your organizations or your partnership, and develop collaboration. Connect it with this community of practice that FAO said yesterday. You register there. If you want to develop your action plan, you know who are the other people working on. And I think that gives a wonderful document. What our athletes presented yesterday in the panel, get into their website. They are having this protocol for measurement. If you do that, they are going to get. So develop your action plan. What do you want to do? Keeping this global roadmap that we have developed out there, and your action plan will fit within that thing. So from then, life will continue, and we will hopefully solve the post-harvest loss problem by 25% from your group to all the way 80% to another group that was somewhere there we will go. So, and Robert, and myself, and Tony, and Divine, we discussed, we'll take it from there. Robert has put rightly out there. We will work together. This is just, the conference is concluding today, but our journey starts today. We will all together, we got to know each other, and we have, right here, we have developed a community, our community of friends that we have developed. So, I would like to give from my side a few concluding comments. Again, this conference would not have been possible without significant financial help from Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, FAO, Save the Food Initiative, USAID, John Deere, University of Illinois, and the University of Illinois College of Agriculture, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences. And I thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and because of you, we are able to bring our friends from far and away under this one roof. Thank you so much. All participants that you came from so far away, and although some of you have gotten sponsorship, it still takes a long, getting your passport done, visa done, with your family, or arranging babysitters for your children. Those kind of things take significant effort, and you all made that effort. So we couldn't be any more happier. So I really thank you very much to all of you for coming here and joining this effort, sharing your ideas, and helping us moving forward. As you know, I would like to say we had 260 total people that checked in. So look at that. Originally we thought of having no more than 150 or somewhere 200 people, but we had 260 people came and constantly stayed here. On and off. People keep on moving from this room to the other room and all up there, but we were all together here. So this is that itself is a big success. Another thing that I would like to mention about this roadmap, the process, I think the process that we went through, developing this roadmap, itself is an outcome. I know many of us that come from different parts of the world, we don't do that. The government tells us and we do that, right? But here, it's an education. Lisa, will you agree to that? That our friends and partners from all over the world, they came, they participated. Now they see This is a bottom-up approach. We collectively decided this is what you're going to do. So please go back and give that message to your organization and your government. So thank you all for all your support. And we'll continue to work as long as, I don't know how many years I'm going to live, but all my life will work with you. Also, thank you so much to all the FAO and the support that we got from FAO, their staff member, and everything. Our University of Illinois, our President Emeritus, Dr. Robert Easter, my goodness, he gives, a philosophical guideline. This is what he thinks, it should be good, or, he never tells us what to do, what not to do, but overall guided us through this entire process. So, President Easter, thank you so much for everything that you have done for this whole group. There is one person you haven't seen much in this one, is silently provided. He was always silent. You have seen him very first day, he moderated the session. He has been always behind the door, providing all this support. Can you guess who that person is? Associate Chancellor Pradeep Khanna. Pradeep Khanna, please stand up and be recognized. When we decided we will do this thing, Dr. Khanna, he said, go ahead, whatever you need, we will provide. As you have seen, Megan, the lady that from day to night, sitting up there in the front office, brought all this package of bags and everything else out there, giving all this suggestion. Anything that you tell her, it gets done. Megan, Roger, Sarah, and others from his office continuously provided this support. So we thank you, Pradeep, and your staff very much. And of course, as I said, and I will say that again, our ADMI staff, we are a small organization. We are, how many people, Katie? We are about 4 full-time staff. And we have pulled it through, and we apologize, but there are few omissions, few errors out there in our proceedings, in our programs. We promise that next conference in 2017, we will do a better job. And so our staff work day and night. I would like to make sure that all of them are recognized by you. Thank you very much. I have 3 jobs. My Dean of the College of ASS, Dr. Robert Hauser, Associate Dean, Dr. Neil Marchand, my department head, Dr. K. Sitting, and Pradeep Khanna. My job is about half in everywhere. So, but anyway, they are constant source of inspiration, and they provide a lot of help, and especially from whole college. Thank you very much, everyone. Last but not least, Dr. Dirk Meyer. I'm a water guy. And Dr. Dirk Meyer is the real post-harvest expert. He has educated me, and he never stops to educate me on, what are the things. So I said, I will do this if I can call you at 2 a.m. in the morning, you should be answering my phone. So on that basis, I agreed to do that. Dr. Dirk Meyer, thank you so much for every step that you led me through this. All the planning committee members and all the program committee members and our logistics committee, my hats off to you. You guided us through this process to be here where we are today. And of course, people that's sitting here, all the auditorium staff, the photographer, the light man up sitting there, thank you so much. Let me invite my boss, Dr. Khanna, here.
Thank you very much, Prasanta. In the university, as you all know, there is only one boss, and that is a professor. No one can tell them anything. So, Prasanta, thank you for everything that you have done to make this a wonderful Congress. And I want to thank you all. This is a unique gathering, 260 people, 62 countries, a true partnership of academy, of development agencies, donors, not-for-profit agencies, industry, and you name every possible stakeholder other than government was in the room for this gathering. And as Beth said earlier, the next step is to engage the government with a clear, well-defined plan to reduce post-harvest losses. I know there was a lot of pessimism. The losses are high as 40 to 50% in many cases. But as you look back on agriculture in the world, we have done remarkable things. In the last 50 years, the world population has almost doubled. The world has been able to feed itself. The number of people who are malnourished has been falling and continues to fall. We had the Green Revolution. We had not so well-known White Revolution in India. We had the revolution in fruits and vegetables, where per capita availability of fruits and vegetables in the world has grown dramatically in the last 50 years. We have been talking about incremental improvement in technology. We have talked about losses going down by 20%, 25%, 50%. Let's just step back for a moment. That is one scenario of incremental improvement. There's a second scenario. In 1970s, when I was still in college, we applied for a telephone connection in India, and we had to wait for 5 years to get a landline. Today, India has more cell phones than any other country in the world. The point I'm trying to make is a jump in technology. Instead of incrementally improving things, you move on to something new and totally different, which people adopt because it is economically viable and it brings them perceived and real benefits. And I think there lies our challenge. And the challenge is we have the right people engaged in this effort. We have scientists, we have got business people, we have got users of technologies, promoters of technologies all together. I think the challenge for all of us to live is, can we make that quantum jump and break the mold? The way we have done, like grapes in India, which are not available, now you can get them at every road corner in the country, or transformation of soybean production in Brazil. The examples go on and go on. One of the reasons for those transformations was a significant investment. We heard earlier that 80 to 90% of agriculture investment has gone into increasing production of agriculture. Very little into post-harvest losses. So I think you're starting a roadmap, which will be done by the end of the year, and we'll have a plan to follow over the next couple of years to engage the government, to broadly engage stakeholders who are already involved here, their partners or other agencies like them in this effort. And hopefully we will together work to reduce the losses significantly at a much higher rate and surprise all of us ourselves. Congratulations on a wonderful conference. Thank you, Prasanta, for everything you have done. And we'll see you again in 2017. Bye.
I just have a little housekeeping thing here. We're going to take some pictures after the session for the people who were planning this event. So we're going to have the members of the planning and program committees, the ones who are here, if you could stay around, we want to get a picture of you. And then the people who helped with the roadmap project, the group facilitators, and the people who were kind of behind the scenes setting that all up. We want to get a picture of you and then the Institute staff. So thank you all for a great conference.
As you can see, our distinguished leaders are sitting here. So Toby, could you be here on the podium? This is the final product. So I thank Toby and our group here. Let's give them the final round of applause here. President Easter, who would conclude this conference? I think you should come here, sir.
Yeah, Prasad, I retired 3 months ago. You haven't quite caught that fact yet. But this is a bit anticlimactic, but I truly appreciated the comments that Pradeep Khanna made just a few moments ago about the quantum leaps that are truly possible. And I've reflected, and I won't take much of your time, but I've reflected over the last several weeks about the evolution of agriculture globally and thought about what were the forces that drove those quantum leaps. And across the system, whether it be meat production, fisheries, our cereals, oil seeds, other products, other condiments, you name it, it's been driven by several forces. Certainly the market has been a key instrument in creating the incentives. Government has been truly important in providing infrastructure and providing regulatory environments, facilitating the availability of credit and other things. But at the end of the day, it's the players in the domain that truly make the difference. And I think we brought together in this event, perhaps by happenstance, in part by design, an incredible group of individuals who have truly the potential of making a real difference. And I'm looking forward to 2017 and hearing the progress that has been made. I can only express my appreciation personally for the role that you're playing. I worry these days about the world that my grandchildren will live in, and this issue is truly one of those critical issues that will define that world, where it is a world that's fueled by turmoil and unhappiness and conflict, or a world that is well-fed, comfortable, and creating a great place for humanity. And you have an incredible role to play, and I can only give you my very best wishes as you travel home, and for success. We look forward to hearing from you in the days ahead. Thank you very much.